Welcome to A Piece of CX. This week we're taking a look at CX1 Studio. Now, CX1 Studio has gone GA within the CX1 Mpower suite, and with it there's a lot of things to look at, I guess. If you're used to using the desktop client, the legacy studio, then it's well worth spending some time in the web version, now just known as Studio. It's accessible via the waffle icon, the application launcher, brings you into this screen here. And I've gone into my directory of all of my different scripts that I play around with and mess around with config in. Now, even before we launch a script, there's some interesting things here that are going on. So firstly, on the left-hand side, we have scripts, and then we have grammars, which I've not played with yet. So we'll have a look at that very, very quickly. And it looks like we've got some grammars in terms of various different files that we can utilize and all that kind of good stuff. But what we're going to do is spend some time in here. Now, I can go and create a new script, and we will do that as part of this. But there are some interesting features here to make your life easier. Now, first thing to say is the file structure for Studio is still the same old file structure. So whatever you're doing when you're making scripts, make sure you save them where you want them to be saved and referenceable, because you still cannot move files in and around the Studio setup. The file structure is still very, very rigid. Although my understanding is there are going to be changes in the future with how you can elevate scripts and all that kind of good stuff, but always worth checking the release notes from Nice. And if you're a partner, speaking to the product team to understand what roadmap looks like for Studio. Now, I'm within my folder here, and say I've got a script I really like, so this one here, I can just duplicate it. I can deactivate a script too, and I can copy that script path and I can export it. Now, again, another note, we've had export and we've had import for a long time with Desktop Studio. It's one of the many things we could do. Desktop Studio, everything is in XML format. If I export this, then I am going to get a JSON file. And if I want to import into Web Studio, then I need a JSON file to do so. I cannot bring an XML file from Desktop Studio. So if you're moving between the two, just be aware of that. You might want to open a script up in Web Studio, then export it as JSON and import it again. Also worth noting, if you have been editing between the two, the look and feel of your scripts can get a little bit funky. So just be aware of that. Choose where you want to be making your changes. The recommendation I would make here is start using Web Studio, because there's lots of interesting things that just make it very compelling to use. The first being, you don't have to install an app, and you don't have the app telling you, hey, I need an update every time you launch it. So within Web Studio, the other thing which played around with just now was we can look for certain things within all of our scripts. So we could look for a script by a certain name. So I'm going to look for Copilot, and there are 4 scripts with Copilot mentioned. I could add another filter on this as well. So let's not do that. Let's add an action. And again, if I look for Agent Assist, you'll see it's offering me every single action in the whole world of Nice. Now, this is one of the things that made moving from desktop to a web-based studio really interesting and really a challenge for Nice, because there are about 1,200 actions. Now, the vast majority of scripts aren't going to use 1,200 actions, but there are still a lot that you need to move across. All of these API functions, all that kind of good stuff. If I now look for just assist, hit return, then I can see I've got 28 scripts using that. More interesting here is a variable or a caption. So where is something referenced, and even a type? Do you just want now? Again, this is trying to make life easier, especially when we talk about that file structure. This is all ways of making administrators' lives easier. And if you think about this, actually, good script management is to put captions in things. So if I look for Copilot mentioned as a caption, it's only showing in my master script as a run action there. So interesting, it's telling me the action it's in. I can go and load that. We've got this pop up at the moment. We're just going to ignore that. This is actually a really interesting script, and one I would always recommend for anyone that's in a pre-sales role, sales engineering role. Rather than having to go into your point of contact and change stuff all the time during demos, create a master script. Create master scripts for digital, create them for voice. And then if you need to pivot between different demos, you just change where this is going and save it. Makes life a lot easier. So that's one script. Let's mess around in a couple of other scripts. So I've got a basic script here. And what you'll find with my scripts are they are really basic if they don't need to be anything more than that. This has clearly been played with in a desktop studio. We'll just neaten it up here. One thing we don't have yet, which I would love to see, and it's something that I've seen in, I think, Zoom's editor, is there is a redo button. I think it's on their virtual agent studio. So that would have been neatened up at the click of a button. What you'll notice here is that the actions are larger, more colorful, more accessible. Not sure why that's taking a little while, but there we go. The other thing you might want to look at here is generally we've always built stuff in a landscape kind of format, moving from left to right within scripts. You have a lot of real estate here. You might want to go vertical as well, but just because it might work a bit better. There are interesting things going on throughout this canvas though. So down at the bottom right here, I have all kinds of options that I'm blocking from my field of vision. So we can go full screen if you want to go full screen. We can fit to screen, which makes things really big. And we can do this, and you can hold down and move stuff around. You can use your scrolling, hit control and scroll in and move stuff around to your heart's content. Your warnings and your errors move all the way over here. If I need to go and configure, then my configuration comes here. So it's all very accessible. With the 25.3 update, I think it was, what we should be seeing is all of the editors are now all the same size and being docked. Potentially haven't got that just yet within my setup here, but there's a lot that you can start to do here. Now, where Studio makes life a lot easier for engineers and when we're building it is this version gives us the option to just drag things out like so. And then it suggests some actions. Now, this is not dynamic, but we can search. So we've got music here, and then maybe what we want to do is put a play announcement. And then we can click on that, we can double click on that, we can open the editor, and that one is embedded. So we can then add a text-to-speech prompt and say, thank you for waiting. And we'll just copy that. We'll copy it into there, and we'll apply that like so. And then what we can do is we can then just revert that back. And they now have curved lines. Ooh. Let's do a right angle on that as well. Play around with those, see what works for your design of your setup. Potentially not that. We'll just go like that. So you can start to move all of this around. You can put all of your actions in here. If we go into the actions here, they're pretty much all bunched up as they used to be in Desktop Studio, and we've got a nice easy tool. You'll only see the actions that are relevant to your type of script. So even though we've got digital engagement here, all we've got are the things relevant to the customer card, because you can use customer card with voice after all. So generally, we are going to use a very, very small common, no, not that, general section. These are the ones that people are using all the time. One thing I didn't show you actually from this master script is you can just click through. He says, if you click in the right place. And then we go into our next script. What you also now have support for is this ability. So say I like this, I can control that, and I can grab it into this one, and I can control V. Now, obviously, if I save this, it is going to say, what are you doing? You've got 2 unanswers. So we can just delete that. And away we go. probably don't want to do that because this was my basic script. And now it's a Copilot script. So what have I done there? So let's just copy that back to there, put it into here, and away we go. But it's really easy to do all kinds of stuff in here. If I, after this, wanted to put a menu in, for example, you'll see that now does become a little bit more dynamic. After a play, we do expect that. We can do default, and then in here, then we can again put our prompts in that we need, and then off of this, then we're going to put a request agent for 1. That's our default route, and then we're going to go like that, and we're going to do a request agent here, and we can say what it's about, and I'm going to say my custom condition of 1. Very easy to build stuff out, very easy to make it look good, and I guess one of the important things with Studio is then making sure we can trace stuff. So that works really nicely with this as well. So this is my script at the moment. I haven't got an agent logged in, but I can hit trace. I've got start with trace or capture with live contacts. I can say how many. And obviously, if you're doing this on a busy live system, you might want to put an Annie in or a DNIS just to make life easier. But, nearly 5 o'clock on a Saturday, no one is putting calls through to this demo platform. So if I put a call through and mute that down, because I've said multiple contacts, it's giving me the one to look at. I click on this, and then we go into our live view of the trace, and it's all really quite neat in here now. So you can move this around. So still you've got the same setup here, that if something is in red, it is a brand new variable. We've got our one contact. We could refer to more here. We could download that trace file. We could detach tracing from a contact, and we could terminate that contact. That call is gone from my phone. All of that kind of good stuff that you would hope to see within Studio. So we'll just leave that as it is. One gotcha that I've found is that you want to be very careful with some of those default options. So if I go into my default digital, only thing here is if I drag out, I don't know why I have 2 begins here. If I click on request agent here, this you'll see is a slightly different colored icon. Do you know what? Let's put them side by side and let's use the zoom feature. So if you have hot pink, that is actually the phone skill. So if I try to save this now, then we're going to get a fatal error and it's not going to work. So just be aware of that on digital, you need to use the digital request agent. So if you look here, they just look a little bit different in terms of what they offer. The voice one has a lot more stuff available to it. So let's delete that, zoom out of that. I get rid of that as well, because we do not need that. When I talk about having simple scripts, I mean, this is as simple as it goes. Begin, cue to skill. Simple. And, if you're demoing as an engineer, that might be all you need. So that is CX1 Studio, now web-based, now really easy to use. If you have not got on board with it yet, spend some time getting to know it, especially if you're showing people what Studio looks like, what routing looks like. Build out some scripts that are really simple and easy to follow and really accessible so that people can see just how useful and easy Studio is to create all kinds of routing within CX1. Thank you very much for joining A Piece of CX.